guys, welcome back to the team video walkthrough. Today we'll be doing the second part of the team video, which is Can't Hold Us by Macklemore and Ryan Lewis. This covers about the next 4 minutes of the video, and this was definitely probably the hardest one to think of on how to do. I was actually on the fence as far as which songs I would use for this segment. Most of the time when I do the in-season segment, I want something that's a little bit, up-tempo kind of thing, just to remind people of, hey, this was a fun season, we all had a great time kind of thing. It took me the better part of winter break to try and find this song and actually like it enough to be able to use it. Back when I made the last few team videos, Jem Kisioff, who was a senior when I was a freshman, actually told me that it would be better if I used music from the year in which the video was made in order to create feelings for both the visuals and the music at the same time. It's supposed to be representative of the entire year. So it made sense to me that, hey, I should use something from this year in order to represent and pay homage to the season that we just had. I started listening to this one, and quite honestly, I liked the beat and I liked how it moved and all that kind of stuff, but the lyrics, I wasn't necessarily sure where to go with those, and it definitely took me some getting warmed up to. So, just like the last one, I had to listen to this one a lot before I actually got a vision of what I wanted things to go for. I actually put it on my iPod, and I think I listened to it about 50 straight times in between classes and whatnot before I finally started developing a notion of, oh, this is how I feel this section should go. Originally, and this is the same thing that I did with the last segment, I threw down the track right after the Imagine Dragons section. I needed a transition so that's not just a hard cut after a new age into this new song. And I figured that's kind of what the last few videos have been missing, is transitions from one segment to another. This is where I started developing the idea of doing all this in West Gym. As you noticed in the last video, I said I wanted the realm of consciousness to be in West Gym, and I wanted to keep that idea going. We just entered the water coming in from the last video, as you might remember. What better way to start out a sound effect than create like an underwater sound effect to kind of meld and then bring up the volume of the next song into it. So you'll notice I actually overlaid a splash sound effect as you're going into the water, and that hides the fact that the song is just cut off really quickly. And then after that, I faded up some underwater sound effect, and I interlaid the audio so that one faded out and the music came up back to the top. And I really liked how it seemed like the music was coming out of the water. The interesting part about the season is I tend to use pictures in most of this part. This was actually the first year where it felt like the pictures were kind of an excuse to be thrown in there, while the video was going to be the main component of everything. But I still wanted to incorporate pictures in some sense or another. And one of the ways I thought about doing this was, wouldn't it be great if the water was filled with pictures? Originally, what I had planned on doing was having just a straight shot looking out underwater and having a bunch of pictures kind of float up from the bottom, but it was extremely hard to pull off, and a lot of the ways that I tried to do it didn't really come out that well. So instead what you see is I ended up shifting my angle from looking down the pool to all of a sudden I wanted them to come up from the lane line. And originally I was going to use each one of the tiles to represent a specific picture, and then I realized, holy crap, there are a lot of tiles at the bottom of the pool, and I was like, that's not gonna work whatsoever. Okay, so this is where it gets kind of interesting. I had a camera movement where I would look to the left and look to the right, and I would see different pictures kind of thing with the GoPro that I used in the last video, and I really liked how it looked underneath the water. I ended up looking down at the lane line since I was gonna block them. Instead, what I did was I actually freeze framed the bottom of the pool with the GoPro, and what I did was I overlaid pictures onto blocks, like mosaic kind of looks kind of thing. What I did to disguise the fact that it is a freeze frame, I created a wave effect so that you didn't really notice that all of a sudden the camera stopped moving and whatnot. As it fades from movie to freeze frame, I faded in the pictures on top of the lane line and then had them come up toward the viewer. Now since the pictures were on a different layer, I could actually bring those up independent of the lane line down below. I wanted to keep one in the middle, and all of a sudden it would just shoot up as the music started. I took the bass beats idea from the last video because if you're going to try and make pictures interesting, the way you do it is with transitions and everything else. The way I felt the transition was I had a different picture on each one of the different beats, kind of like I did in the Dynamite video last year, because I wanted to keep up the pace with pictures. If you just stay at pictures long enough, it gets really boring, let's be honest. And I made sure to use single shots of people so that your attention is always at the center of the screen. So I went rapidly through a bunch of those, and then that's when I started paying attention to what the music actually had to say. How to incorporate the lyrics into the video itself. So the third line is looking for a better way to get out of bed, and I'm sitting there going like, I have a bunch of shots from the St. Olaf meet where people were sleeping and all that kind of stuff, so I started putting in some pictures of them going back and forth. The next line, ironically, is instead of getting on the internet, and I was like, how do you signify the internet in this thing? So what I ended up doing was I created a transition where, when you click on something on the internet and it like zooms in and it has like these little like borders around the corners of each one of the pictures. Well, I did that for each one of the shots, and I had to zoom in like you're clicking on them. And then after that, I just went back to the original plan of going back through a bunch of different pictures of people. So I realized that going through a bunch of different pictures means you don't have a lot of time to stop and smell the roses, and that's kind of a thing. So some of the better pictures I wanted to do, in other words, some of the group shots, I knew I needed to hold on those a little bit longer in order to make them more effective. So what I did is, there's a certain point where it seems like Macklemore goes like, blah, and I thought it was really funny when I heard it, and I found this picture of Robert Kaylor that was literally like he just went bleh. I put that at the end of the speed segment, and I had that start the slowdown part where I start using group shots and whatnot. I started paying a lot more attention to the lyrics. This here is our party. In other words, every time you reference party in the lyrics, I tried to have some kind of like sparkly effect as the transition. My posse's been on Broadway. I started having lights flicker in, and we did it our way. You'll notice the transition from that one to the next one is actually arrows pointing in a specific way. I shed my skin. I ended up using a shred transition, which I created myself in order to shred. I know it was kind of a stretch. Let that stage light go and shine on down was actually one of my favorites. I actually had the light come in from the top, and this was actually the beginning of me creating some of my own transitions, like the line effect that you could see where some of the pictures would cross in. The last part I think was we give it to the people, and I wanted to get a group shot of everyone putting their hands up in the air. So then after that, I created a transition where it was a particle effect, where it kind of dissolved into particles, and I thought that was so cool to be able to use. So the next time when it says, can we go back, I actually pushed the transition backwards. I pushed it opposite of the direction things have been going so far. And then again, like I did in the radioactive segment, I wanted to use shots that I'd never done before. And I wanted, you know, once again, people getting up on the blocks, getting ready to go. I feel like this has been done ad nauseum at this point, but still. And I really like that whole slow motion effect of people getting ready. It looks really cool. Actually, my favorite shot is one of Will. I was meaning to try and show a lot more depth of field in this video. In other words, like not just everything's in focus. So I got a close-up of Will on the block. He's actually in lane 5, and I'm on the other side of the pool at St. Thomas. It blurred everyone else out in the background, and I thought that was a really cool effect. And then obviously as soon as the music takes off, everyone else does too, and everyone starts and gets ready to go. So if you'll notice for the swimming sections, and this is a theme that was recurrent throughout the entire rest of the video, I literally took every stroke and I tried to match it to everybody's other stroke. If someone was at like this point in their stroke, the next person would start on that stroke. I wanted to make it feel like the team is swimming, not just one person. Everyone is behind this and everyone is doing the same thing together. Obviously it's a lot easier to do that with freestyle, as we'll get to later on in a bit. I didn't have everyone finish with this one because it's the middle of the song and I wanted to keep going after that. So I ended up with Jesse's part and I had a bubble transition that I created myself, come over everything and get back to the picture. With this next segment about the pictures, I took another transition where I would bring in specific parts of the pictures and flash each part in, and I want it to be on the beat, so it'd be da, 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 da. Each one of the blocks is appearing with the beat. And I tried to center the picture so that the people in question in each picture were actually on screen in the middle, so no one would get cut off on the sides, because the sides would come in rather quickly. And I wanted to make sure I ended to an extent where I could zoom back in on Camille. I like the shot of her here where it just kind of seems like she's peeking out behind something. I thought that was kind of funny. And then after that, I went through a bunch of different pictures really quickly when he says, "To a great white shark on Shark Week, wah!" And I thought that was really cool when I heard it, and I was going like, it's such a powerful moment, I need something really cool in that segment. So what I ended up doing was I took the Halloween picture and I literally zoomed up in on a bunch of different people's faces, and I went through a bunch of them because I knew that you'd be able to see the entire picture later on, because I wanted to end on the Halloween picture because I thought it'd be the most powerful shot. And so right after that I kept the theme of going with the particle transitions, and I would just kind of go through a bunch more group shots with that particle transition just to keep the theme going. Once I find an effect and I like it, I tend to use it a lot. So a few of the lines I tried to pay homage to with the pictures as well. Raise those hands, this is our party. You see George, he's got his arm up. We came here to live life like nobody was watching. I put Alex kind of looking like, kind of thing. I got my city right behind me. I put a picture of Molly with her arm on Clayman's shoulder, and then obviously keep on marching on. We go straight back into the swimming, but I wanted to divvy up a little bit this time. I started out with freestyle again, but this time I took a flip turn and I turned it into backstroke. I had an open turn from Eli's 400 IM that took us to breaststroke, and I tried to keep that theme going. Finally, at the very end of it, I actually put some flyers in, and I basically took the entire team through an IM set. Again, it's like the whole point is to make it look like the team is doing everything. Obviously, it ends with the ceiling can't hold us, and I've been wanting to put a shot of the ceiling in for so long. As soon as I heard that line, I was like, I know what I'm doing now. So right after this, there's a trumpet interlude, and I, for the longest time, was trying to think of how to be able to convey this in an interesting way. Well, I went back through the footage of the St. Thomas meet, and I ended up finding out that I had an extensive clip of Allie Clark playing trumpet. I have to use this now. It's like, there's no better excuse to be able to use this clip. I was zoomed up in really far away from her, which means the video was extremely shaky, and there's only like a specific second that I was able to use. So I literally just took that second and then fast forwarded, rewinded it, fast forwarded, rewinded it, back and forth to make it look like she was playing the notes on the song. So I'm gonna fast forward a little bit to when Eli slams the water and goes, "Let's go," kind of thing at the end of this, because I was listening to the song a lot and I was trying to find a way to properly convey this next segment. It's such a weird kind of segment. I didn't really know what to make of it when I first heard of it. It sounded like it was psychedelic, kind of like the radioactive thing where it's like breathing in the chemicals again and whatnot. And after I did radioactive, I was sitting there going like, wait wait a second, I can use the same thing for that. I was looking for an excuse to use the kaleidoscope effect again, so that's kind of what I needed to do. And at the end of that segment, there's a part where it goes da 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 da. What kind of transition can I do rather than just go through a bunch of pictures again? Oh wait, a kaleidoscope. It does it 7 times, so I'll create a 7-spoked kaleidoscope at the very end of this segment, and I'll bring in the next picture really quickly, one segment at a time, to cover up that kaleidoscope, and the song continues. So the next part was, how do I get the transition into this part to start? So I wanted it to come out of the trumpet. I was originally going to have the video come out of the trumpet itself, and I thought that looked really cheesy when I first did it. So instead what I did was I created a circle of the segment, I overlaid it on top of the trumpet, and I had this kind of like glory effect to it, so that it had like the shine around the edge to it. It just got blasted out of the trumpet, and now all of a sudden you were in this kaleidoscope-y section that I really enjoyed making. Wherever the middle of the kaleidoscope was, I tried to move it around, and the next point that would come up would transition from the last point of origin. I think my favorite was actually Sam's, because she collapses in on herself doing breaststroke, which I thought was awesome. And then all of a sudden, obviously, you have Eli doing his thing coming up. Let's go. And then this next part was actually kind of interesting in the sense that, how do I incorporate the beat to this? It was such an inspirational part. I was like, I had to be able to do this in a way that, you know, paid homage to the song itself. I tried to time stroke counts to the beat itself. So I started out with backstroke, na, na, and then I tried to do freestyle, na, na, and then I did breaststroke, na, 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 and then I did butterfly, na. And in between I would do like little crowd shots. In other words, hey, 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 like everyone's kind of cheering for a little bit. I went down the line on the St. Thomas meet, so I put that in there. I got Immense Team cheer in there. I ended up incorporating some diving in there. I graphic matched a bunch of Lydias together to try and make that section a little bit more interesting and also fast-paced. And John Blake made the video too. I needed to put him in at least at one point. And then at the very end when it goes, originally I was going to use the actual audio from the cheer itself. There wasn't a defined enough start point to the cheer that I wasn't able to use it in the manner that I was thinking of. So I just kind of overlaid it with the downbeat of everyone just kind of doing their thing. Then right after that, you know, what better way to end? So put your hands up, you know, that kind of thing. I showed everyone finishing. I just tried to time it with some of the best shots from the season. And one of my favorites was actually Molly when she was wearing that weird costume from the Halloween competition. I had to put the R in there, make sure that made it in. It was hard to do that specifically because we don't hold our hands in the air for very long. I had to actually slow down a few of those to like 80% speed. It might be noticeable, but I had to try and keep it up in the air long enough for me to actually use a bunch of those clips over and over again. I think I got 5 meets worth of R's. And one of my favorite parts about the R segment is actually Evan doing one in the background where he just goes, yeah! And again, like the ceiling can't hold us, one of my favorite shots is underneath Gerald Young's office when Christian's doing his cheer, and I made sure to make that the ending shot and had that fade back into the water. So yeah, that's the second part of the team video. Join us next time as we go down to Florida and listen to the beautiful tones of Ellie Goulding's Burn. Alright guys, thanks for watching.
Like the ceiling can't hold us.